let me know. Okay. I will be reflecting today about my father, Richard D. Sherwood. Now, I understand my father is not a famous person, and he's not very well known, but he is important to me, so I'd like to share that importance with you. My father is a great man. He was a great person to his community. He was a charitable man. He was also a great member of his church. He was a committed and loyal father to his family. Now, just to give you an example of how my father was a great man, remember when we got that snow? And I mean like that huge amount of snow? It was like 3 feet, and when the state plowed it was like 6 feet. Yeah, my father was the crazy one out in the snow when the state was not around, because we lived all the way out in the boonies, helping the elderly be dug out from their houses just in case they needed to go to the hospital or go get medications because they were unable to do so. Now, and then once he was finished with that, he would trot home and he would tell us kids, now go out and go plow your own road, which was funny because that's just how he was. My father grew up in New York and he moved down to North Carolina with my grandparents. He then attended High Point University, where there he met my mother. I have two recollections of how my father and my mother met, my mother's version and my father's version. My mother's version goes like this. She decided she was going to go play tag football with all the frat boys. She decided to cross the street to get to the field, wasn't looking where she was going. My father slammed on the brakes. Now my father's version goes up to that cue, but however, my father's version goes like this. He yelled out the window, "You're cute, but you're stupid." Which my mother said that if she had heard that, she probably would not have gone out with him. So going on from that point is that afterwards they decided to date, and he pursued her even further, which would have today seemed like stalking because he found out her classes, he sent her flowers, he sent her chocolates. He was very chivalrous, which nowadays unfortunately you don't see. My father and mother decided to get married in 1975. The day that they got married, my father stated to my mother that in the reflection of her eyes, he could see the sparkles of us kids. My father was a wonderful man. After being married for 30 years and having 3 children, you would think that my father was blessed. He was. He was very fortunate. You would think that. When his first grandchild, my daughter, was coming along, my father was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, which, as you know, is the same cancer that Larry Hogan has right at this point. The doctor stated that he had an 85% chance of beating it if he did the chemotherapy and radiation. Now, this is how wonderful my father was. Even though he was doing chemotherapy and radiation, he still continued to work and maintain his annual income during chemotherapy and radiation, which is very hard to do because you're severely sick after that. He didn't quit. He didn't stutter. He maintained. I remember him telling me the best thing about this whole experience was that he craved McDonald's cheeseburgers and my mother couldn't tell him no. And I told him, I said, Bruce Willis is a bald, fine man. Losing your hair won't be that bad. We had a wonderful connection. My father had wonderful 4 years with his grandchild, and then another came along, and he had another wonderful 2 years with her. Though death is cunning. My father woke up one morning feeling woozy. He couldn't stand and he was faint. My mother rushed him to the hospital. They saw my father's blood test, and they also did diagnostic tests, and they did his blood pressure, and they found it was below normal. They continued to do more tests, and after giving him blood transfusions and continued more tests, they found that he had something called acute myelogenous leukemia, which is a byproduct of the chemotherapy and radiation you get through lymphoma. The chances of you getting this, based off Johns Hopkins and my father's doctor, was 25%. Now, my sister and brother and I were not told right away about my father's condition. He held it a secret for about a week. He didn't want us to give us a call on the phone and state to us, by the way, I have months to live. He didn't want to state that to us. I remember walking to my parents' house, eager to pick my daughter up after she had spent time with her grandparents, little I did know how precious that time was. My first initial response after my mother said my father needed to talk to me was, "Oh no, what did I do?" She wasn't cold or dismissive. She smiled and said, "Go," which had me even more concerned. I walked up, and sitting across from me was my father. He told me everything. He didn't cry. He didn't seem upset. He was eager and hopeful. The doctors told him that the chemotherapy and radiation he would do would give him a 50% chance, though when I Googled it and researched it on Johns Hopkins, they stated after the age of 62, it would give you a 25% chance. Not sure if that doctor was trying to make him more hopeful. I'm not sure. But we hugged, I cried, and we parted ways that night, knowing that the next time I would see my father was in a hospital setting. The third weekend, my father took turn for the worst. My sister was having her first child. He went to the hospital February 6, 2013, the date my niece was born. And on February 28, 2013, he passed away, literally 23 days later. My father's last words to me that night on his condition, he told me, was, "Life is like a book. This is my ending chapter, but I will always continue to love you kids and continue on to your kids and your grandkids." Or my grandkids, sorry. My father was a great man. He had a way with words, and he was charitable, and he was generous, and he was one of the top men in my life that I could always count on. You don't hear that too often nowadays. He worked hard at supporting his family and helping his community. There are many today who still remember my father and speak highly of him. They say that the world lost a good man. I couldn't agree with them more.